call this meeting to order of the January 16th, 2025 Public Utility Advisory Board. First time I can remember we've had full 7 members. So glad to have everybody here. Before we have Christina call roll, I do want to welcome our newest member, Terry Mertel, with 2 L's.
True. 1 R, 2 L's.
1 R, 2 L's. Well, my name's Les with 1 S, but nobody spells it that way. So, whole other story. Therapy later. So anyway, so Christina, would you call roll, please, before I get in more trouble?
Brad Chance,
I'm here.
Anthony Jeremita,
Here.
Greg McGee,
Here.
Steve McLucky,
Present.
Terry Mertel,
Here.
Michael Talcott,
Here.
Les Boatwright.
Here. Okay, you've got 2 sets of minutes on the agenda here. The reason the November 11th, I guess we got 3 sets. Are we doing the 11th? The minutes say the 21st, my note says the 11th. Which one is it?
November
21st, okay. So minutes of the November 21st meeting, we didn't have a quorum, so we couldn't vote on those. So we're gonna go ahead today and do 2 sets. So we've got minutes of the November 21st, 2024 meeting. Looking for a motion to approve.
Move approval. Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any discussion? Christina, will you call the roll, please?
Brad Chance,
Aye.
Anthony Jeremita,
Yes.
Greg McGee,
Yes.
Steve McLucky,
Aye.
Terry Martell,
Yes.
Michael Talcott,
Yes.
Les Boatwright.
Yes. So those have been approved. Now we'll go down to the meeting minutes of the December 19th, 2024 meeting. Christina, if you'll call roll.
We need a
So
motion.
moved.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess I jumped ahead. We need a motion.
So moved.
So moved. We got a second?
Second.
Third? No, never mind. Go ahead, Christina. I
Brad
stirred it
Chance.
up. I just screwed it up.
Yes.
Anthony Jeremita,
Yes.
Greg McGee,
Yes.
Steve McLucky,
Aye.
Terry Martell,
Yes.
Michael Talcott,
Yes.
Les Boatwright.
Yes. So those have been approved. Okay, so our first item on here was, I put that on there about updating the rules and procedures in the city charter. City charter is one of those things that's gonna have to be changed eventually anyway. I mean, we tried to vote on it before, so there's some wording in there that will change. And then we'll get into the PUAB versus PUB, that discussion a little bit. That'll require a charter change. One of the things I wanna make sure, and Joe, I might have you jump in here. You and I have talked before about the purpose of this committee. And so you want to, in a nutshell, just kind of spell out for us what our bylaws and rules of engagement are for this committee.
Wow, I don't know if I was prepared for all of that, but I mean, in a nutshell, the PUAB is to help the utilities of Independence make sound business decisions in order to maintain viability and operate into the future. I think that's really the biggest one, is to help us with strategic planning, help us look at budgets, help us look at, and that's why there's financial statements in here, right? Look at the finances and try to understand where we are and where we're going, and help give us guidance and direction for that. Now, it's in an advisory capacity because the decisions are ultimately made by the city council, right? On big decisions, big budget items, capital projects and such. But this group is to advise us and help guide us, and then make recommendations ultimately to the city council in support or not in support of different items that we may be going forward with as well.
And I think people get confused too. We're over really all the utilities. We're over IPL, but we've also got wastewater, stormwater, well, not storm, but municipal services.
You have storm.
Water, that's a whole other story. But that's also part of our purview. A lot of people think, well, you're just looking at IPL, and we're not. You know, we actually see, if you look in here, and we'll get into those a little bit in the financials, we cover quite a few different sets of financials that this group oversees. You know, we're not here as a watchdog group. We're actually here, like Joe said, advisory capacity to projects and things, the strategic things to move IPL and wastewater and the other things forward.
I would say the probably most succinct way to say that is that the PUAB is a policy advisory board, obviously not into the day-to-day operations, but certainly policy policy setting for all three utilities.
Right, and the charter does mention that we have to have a PUAB and kind of what some of the rules are. That vote didn't happen the way we thought it was going to in the fall. They'll revisit that, but so we're still operating under the city charter the way it stands. And if y'all aren't familiar with the PUAB section of that city charter, you can get it online. There's copies. I don't think you still get those blue books up at City Hall.
Clerk might be able to find you one.
Maybe. I was on the charter review. They gave us all one, and I'm like, man, where'd you dust these off? Because they've been around a while. So if you're not familiar with that, take a look at the city charter. There's a lot of stuff in that document that people don't think about, don't realize is there, and the way things are governed. So just have you take a look at that if we could. Now, our bylaws, I'm not sure when the last time they were updated. It was in the last year or two, I think. We might look at that date and just see if they need any tweaking.
I want to say it was around 2018, 19.
Maybe we'll take a look at them then and see if there's any tweaks to them that need to be done, especially now that we've got a full house. So it'd be kind of good for everybody just to go through the bylaws again. Maybe we'll do that at the next meeting. We'll take a look at the bylaws and discuss them so people are clear. Okay, anything else on the city charter, rules of procedure, rules of engagement, whatever you want to call it? Yeah, Michael.
So do we have when you talk about making changes because of the things that we're doing with governance and so forth,
Mhm.
are we setting a time, or are we just putting that in the future, or are we gonna set a date to start working on it?
On the governance stuff?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, as far as the stuff that needs to be changed in the.
Well, that'll be, if they change the governance structure, because they want to go to a vote, according to the other night when the president made in August,
Right.
which means wording for that's got to be done in like into May to get approved. So between now and then, they've got to come up with whatever wording it's going to be for that, and the vote will require a change to the charter
Okay,
to have that new stuff. So we kind of do have a time frame.
so are we participating in that change?
Yes, and
Okay,
that was another thing
okay.
I have on my list to
Right.
talk about. So
Okay,
we'll talk about that when we do
okay,
comments.
thanks.
Because we've talked a little bit about it, but nothing real detailed. So if we have anything to add to what Joe presented the other night, there's some time for discussion.
Right.
Okay, let's go down to finance and admin. We got the financial reports from November of '24 in our packet here, and it was, I believe, sent out. Anybody have any questions on the utility financial reports? I guess I would ask the people that are most knowledgeable, anything on the financial reports that are a red flag, anything we need to be concerned about?
There's nothing on the water or sanitary side. And then, of course, with these reports are also the project list, which we're all prepared to give you an update on shortly.
Yeah, on the capital improvement.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's the next item.
And you, I think you said that you had some prospects for finance manager,
Mhm.
IPL finance manager.
Yeah, we're in the process of scrubbing through resumes and going through the process of hiring. It's been posted. It still continues to be posted, so.
Okay,
For the new members on here, I was just gonna say, IPL's in the process of hiring a finance manager specifically for IPL. And there'll be a financial analyst added, and then there's another term you had about.
Data scientist.
Data scientist to help them, scrub a lot of the data sets they have to make some decisions on. So that's coming down the pike. It's just not here quite yet.
so when that manager's in place, what's the plan to try and make the financials more transparent and less convoluted, like DKMT was talking about?
Well, I mean, I need to get them in and on board and get them up to
Right.
date with our city systems, our utility systems, and but some of their first goals will be to overlook the last financial model and rate case study, which was done in 2023. It wasn't that long ago, right?
Right.
And get that up to date, and then start working on some reports that are probably, I guess I would use the word more optical than just numbers. So maybe some graphs to kind of, hey, where are we at with budget and
Right.
those types of things, because I'm a visual type learner myself.
Right.
So work on some standardized reports that we could also bring that would complement these reports.
So at that point, we're really gonna start pulling both of those apart to where IPL financials are strictly run with IPL and the city's finance?
I'm going to say complementary. I'm not going to say it's completely siloed and we'll give you different stories because that's not really the intent, right? The intent is that we're all telling the same story.
Mhm.
May just be in different visuals or different things.
Slice at it.
So I gave this analogy to the Street Oversight Committee just a couple days ago. One of the questions that came up was, are there two sets of books? And the analogy I try and give is it's similar to keeping a checkbook versus your bank statement. So the departments keep a much more real-time accounting of what has been encumbered, what has been spent, versus what finance provides. As you know, we're in January and we're looking at a November financial statement. When the utility is producing that, we can tell you what has been encumbered and what has been spent and all those things, similar to the storm and the street oversight committees. That's a little more live. There's not a second set of books. There's just one that hasn't been vetted through finance. It's all in the same system. It's all the same funds. There's not IPL standalone versus IPL's city accounts. They're all the same and it's all the same system. It's just one is more timely because it's I keep my checkbook and I write down as soon as I spend money. The bank statement comes to me maybe half a month later, middle of the next month, and I true up. That's effectively what we have with the finance department statements versus these. And one of the things that we could look at, if you want to, before this report, there was a report that was much more similar to, for those of you that have been on oversight committees, something that's a little simpler that collapses some of these things that don't necessarily make a lot of sense. It breaks it more into operating expenses, personnel expenses, CIP, and then revenue streams of different sorts. It's a little easier to understand. And if you want an example of that, we're happy to provide that. If you'd like to pick, this is a product of 2 finance directors ago. So really it's your board and we're happy to provide what you want to see. If you want a more simplistic version that is probably easier to understand and thereby maybe more transparent, we can provide an example of both to compare and just see what you prefer.
Well, I'm just going by what DKMT in their report, they said it was so opaque because when they dug into it, they couldn't even figure it out. So that's what I'm asking, how we're gonna make that so it's not like that anymore.
There's always just going to be the one set of books and still we will have annually audited financials. But yes, having that one person in-house to create those more current and more easily understood reports is absolutely something that we can do when that person's on board.
Yeah, that's going to be one of their first goals.
I think I'd like to see the 2 versions you talked about.
Sure.
Just for the group to see that and get familiar with that.
Okay.
Because we may want to look at something, may have the detail, but if we had a higher level look at it, something may jump out that we want to ask a question about more so than all the details, the devil's in the details.
Sure. And then just for your reference, the city's annual audited financial report should be presented to the Finance and Audit Committee January 29th, and then would be published on our website shortly thereafter if you want to reference that as well,
Okay,
just as information.
all right, thank you. Anything else on financials? Okay. Capital improvement plans?
If you all
Capital
can
improvement
read.
projects?
Yeah, so page 11 in your packet has the power and light capital projects. If you can read that fine print, yeah, we could probably, maybe we'll have that electronically too, that we can email them to the group. I mean, they're available online, right, too, along with this meeting, so I can go through quickly. I don't know if there's any specifics you guys have on projects, but if you just want me to go down through the list real quick. T&D system improvements, I know that's a very generic title and it's meant to be that way because it's for improvements and projects in the T&D system that we don't know about yet. So when a car hits a transformer out in the public and we have to replace a transformer, then that hits that kind of project, right? And it's we've kind of gone through some iterations, and we've had some pretty heavy discussions internally with IPL on how we handle that with the city finance, because it used to be that project would have a certain dollar amount associated with it, and then the next year we would have it, and if you didn't use all of those buckets, it would kind of snow plow together and steamroll together. Well, we kind of have a budgeted amount that we allocate to that each year. So we're looking at a different approach of closing out that project at the end of a year and starting a new one. So you're going to see some repeats down here throughout is kind of what I'm trying to tell you, that I can't close a project till everything's been encumbered, paid for, and closed out completely. But you'll see some that are repeated. That T&D system improvements, I think we have a 2024 and a 2025 project, and those are just finishing out, closing the books. Fiber optic program, you guys hopefully are aware that we have our own network people that work on fiber optic and communications networks throughout the city. That includes traffic signals and, among other things, among city infrastructure and communications from our substations. So IPL owns a fiber network throughout the city. So this is really some of those infrastructure hardware needs for that. 69 kV substation facilities is exactly what it says. Just like T&D systems, we had a 69 kV substation that needed some upgrades, and that is that project, which is close to being closed out. Substation security, we're really creative with our names, so they kind of say what they're supposed to do. So the substation security project is really physical security at our substations, and a project to put in cameras and hard infrastructure, fences, gates, things like that to help keep those secure and closed up. 69 kV transmission line rebuild, I believe that project is completed, and we're waiting for some final bills to come in to close that out. System operations work area. This was a project created several years ago. Our system operations area, which holds our dispatchers and our transmission operators, if you walked in there, you'd probably just short of shag carpeting on the walls. It's probably 1980s vintage, I would say, decoration and furniture. We put a project in the book several years ago to upgrade that. We're taking a second look at that because we want to make sure there's a lot of new things available for technologies for control rooms and things of that sort. So we want to make the best use of those dollars and make sure that room and the infrastructure inside of there is the right place to do that. So with my new deputy director, we're kind of taking a reevaluation of that. But it will move forward. It does need to happen. I guess I'm just saying we're reevaluating. I don't want to just slap a bunch of paint and put new furniture in there and call it a day. Let's really evaluate the future of IPL and what's going to best serve us and the residents. Blue Valley groundwater monitoring, when that plant was closed, we have a continual groundwater monitoring program because of the coal ash ponds out there. So that project will continue on for several years. We have I can't remember the exact number of years, but we have a requirement by Missouri DNR to continually monitor those ground wells and make sure that there's no ash or any contamination of groundwaters. Substation K switchgear, I believe that one's done. Missouri City divestiture was really just the writing off of all of those assets and trying to get them off of our books. Substation E switchgear replacement is done. They're closing that project up. Another fiber optic network, and we talked about that, kind of some of these projects, right, are revolving. Traffic controller upgrades and camera system upgrades. Again, fancy names for exactly what they are. So there's a lot of, with our communications team, they take care of a lot of street lights that have these systems on them, and we continually have to upgrade those with newer technologies to make sure they're operating. The next two, Motorola radio purchasing and the APC UPS battery replacement, are continued communications projects. Without going into a whole lot of detail. Substation modeling has been one that we have struggled to get traction on just due to the fact of manpower. I think most of the team that's been here for the PUAB understands that we've had a challenge hiring engineers, especially electrical engineers, and to the point that we've had to actually hire outside consultants to augment our engineering staff. So once we have the manpower and capability, we'll start with the substation modeling, and that's just looking out into the future and making sure that our substations can handle the capacity that we're asking them to and serve the area that they're on.
And maybe that they're in the right place.
Physical location, number of connections, miles of line that they serve, load, yep, all of that. Transmission pole replacement program. So this was done, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. We actually do every 5 years a survey of all the poles. We hire a contractor to come in, they survey all our poles, look at them, and kind of rate them on a criticality basis for, hey, these may be newer, but they're in really bad shape. These are really old, and they kind of assign a criticality level to them, and then we go through and strategically replace those poles before they fail.
You're talking wood poles?
Wood poles. Substation A transformer T9 maintenance is completed, waiting to be closed out, and substation N is almost completed. Desert Storm switchgear cabinets sounds really cool. Sounds like some Army military stuff, but literally. That's the color of them. They're like a Desert Storm brown, and that's literally, yeah. When I first got here, I was like, man, that's cool. We got some Desert Storm cats. No, that's just I think it's the color of them. They're just switch. Yeah, sorry.
Down a little bit, it says Andy Warhol switchgear cabinets.
Yeah, those are part of the landscape project. T&D road improvement projects. So every year especially when MoDOT comes through and says, hey, we're gonna update 24 highway, right? And we may or may not know that that's coming down the pipe. Well, 24 highway may have some substation entrances off of there that we have to adjust and do some road work to redo that. So we have some money in our budget to make sure that we're not just caught completely off guard. And so we put dollars in there to make sure that we can continue to access our different substations. There's another traffic signal detection system, service center PBX upgrade. We're getting into repeats here. I can probably move down the list pretty quick.
What about purchase energy 69 kV line?
So before that one, let's talk about 202314 through 202316. So that's the new substation S construction dollars that's put out there. So that project, we got approval to purchase the two transformers, which are 69 to 13.8 kV transformers, for substation S, which is currently going to be located out north of 78 between Little Blue and 7 Highway. There's a road kind of smack dab in the middle called Bly Road. And if you go north on Bly Road up until you hit basically there's a stream there, and our 161 kV big power lines run up through there. It's just on the south side of that is where it's currently going to be located. The purchase Evergy 69 kV line, the line that currently runs from Blue Valley, which is a 69 kV line, and it runs up 78 all the way to Lake City property, is currently owned by Evergy. It is common for electric utilities to own their own lines between their own substations. So since we're going to be locating a new substation S, we're going to buy a portion. We would like to buy a portion of that line. I kind of stumbled there because, I mean, we have to figure out where exactly that line break is gonna happen, and then I would need to go approach Evergy about their interest in us purchasing that from them, and instead of us having a line between substations that's owned by a different company. Emergency replacement of transmission poles. I think I've said it before in this group that I try not to buy the ones with targets on them. Unfortunately, the people in this town are very good at hitting them. So we got to have some dollars there ready to replace those. Service center upgrades. There was kind of a project that lived on the books forever, and it was very vague. So the service center, was it built in the 60s? Pretty old. It's been out there a while, right? And just the infrastructure on it alone, you guys know it's had many different uses. We've had offices there, and then we've relocated, and now we have administrative offices here, and there's just been a lot of movement, and there's a lot of aging equipment out there. So when I took over as director, I said, let's upgrade some of these facilities for the employees working out there. And so we allocated $500,000 a year to do different projects, and they've got a list of priority projects. And this year, the locker room, which hasn't been touched in ages, and the exhaust fan wasn't working, and the bathroom was really in bad shape. So they're currently in the middle of that project. They've replaced the lockers with newer style lockers, got some new lighting in there, new exhaust fans. So it's definitely making the work conditions better out there for the linemen and the employees. So this is going to continue the next 2 years to address issues like that of the infrastructure and things that just need to be done to bring that facility up to at least some decent standards. Another T&D system improvements, SCADA and EMS software and hardware upgrade. That project is currently underway. When's it looking to be completed? That one's still got another year or so, right?
Probably by the end of the year.
Yeah.
The end of the calendar year.
Into the calendar year. So going through and upgrading our control systems for the different units and substations. T&D truck shed. We've run out of kind of storage area for a lot of our line trucks, and we spend pretty good money for line trucks and bucket trucks. And so it would be nice for us to be able to take care of those and put those in a storage area and kind of keep them when they're not being used a little bit out of the weather. So this is a project to just build nothing fancy, probably the Butler style building to just hold some of those line trucks and get them in out of the weather. Blue Valley chimney demolition. I think we've talked about this one specifically on this board, that stack needs to come down. The longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to be. Those units will never run again. So this is to just take down that stack. That project has been started as far as hiring an engineering firm to go out and evaluate what needs to be done and then contract it as well, the actual deconstruction of that.
Any idea when that might happen?
Not yet. The engineering firm is still working on evaluating it and writing the scope for the bid process for the actual physical work. So that's underway.
I think we should look at selling tickets and raising some money.
I don't think it's going to be as exciting as you would think it's going to be. It's not going to be a big boom style.
Now, you could take bets on where they're gonna land it.
Ooh, that's good.
This is why I'm waiting on the service center upgrades.
The T&D truck shed?
Yeah, the T&D truck shed. Yeah, let's get the stack down before we do that.
Yeah.
No, it needs to come down in a pretty controlled fashion because there is an asbestos lining in the very center of that, and that's why that project's going to be pretty expensive, and that's why there's big dollars assigned to it. But it needs to come down before it takes itself down. Emergency replacement of transmission poles and maintenance production. All of these are repeat ones until you get to substation battery chargers. Those are just replacing equipment out there for UPS batteries out at the substations. Service center exterior upgrades is kind of a mirror of the interior, just taking care of the exterior infrastructure of that building. Substation H switchgear upgrades, we're gonna be kicking that one off hopefully pretty soon. Right now, if I have, so at Substation H, we have H5 and H6. Right now, if I tag out H6, let's say, I have 2 gas compressors. When I tag out that one combustion turbine, it actually takes out the one gas compressor, so I only have one that I can use. If they're not tagged out, I can use either gas compressor. I know it's a little, I'm trying not to be too confusing. I want the ability to be able to tag out a combustion turbine and still have the ability to use both gas compressors. So we can do that today, but it requires some manual line running and a weird configuration of our switchgear, and I don't really care for that for the safety of our employees. So we're going to kick off that project and hopefully upgrade that switchgear and be able to accomplish that in a more normal fashion. And then fleet and equipment tenure replacements is exactly that. So as our equipment gets aged, and that's everything from bucket trucks to vehicles to everything that's our equipment, as it gets aged and is on a replacement rotation program from our fleet department, we keep dollars in there for that. Any questions?
Any questions on the capital improvement program?
Interesting.
We might, future meeting, Lisa, take a look at what municipal services has as far as, I don't think we have a copy of it, do we?
Yeah, it's part of the
Oh, is that
financial
on back?
report. Yep.
Okay,
For both water and sanitary. And then
I just
in
found it.
the next, probably in February, we'll be doing our current CIP for this next year, because it will be presented to Planning Commission in February or March. So we'll get that in front of you at the next meeting as well.
Awesome, awesome.
But Rich is doing today's.
Okay,
Yep. I'm ready if you are.
roll, baby, roll.
All right. So I kind of group these all together in like sets, right? So we got a set of projects we need to close out. We got our
Page 14 in your set.
we have our
or
ongoing
24,
maintenance
whichever.
projects and stuff like that. So projects that we need to close out because they're finished up or are no longer necessary is the Crackerneck Van Hook Sewer, SCADA upgrade, biosolids handling, Rock Creek Treatment Plant vents, railing safety at the Rock Creek Pump Station, Sugar Creek Pump Stations, 39th Street Reservoir, Courtney Bend Emergency Generator, main replacement from Ralston 31st to 29th, main replacement on Truman Road, Courtney Bend electrical switchgear, IT infrastructure upgrades, high service pump station HVAC improvements, lime silo recoating, fiber optic upgrades, lime slaker number 6, and raw pumps and screening. Those are all finished up and ready to be closed out. Just a little bit of cleanup on the financials for those, making sure that the last bills have been paid, that kind of thing. So our ongoing maintenance projects that are always out there, you're always going to see these. These are things that we need to take care of continuously. So that's a sanitary sewer evaluation survey, looking for infiltration into our system. One of those things we always need to do. Piping rehabilitation in the sanitary sewer plant and 2 large pump stations. And these we generally, it depends. We add money to them. Some years we don't. It just kind of depends on whether we've done work out of them. But we try to maintain some balance so that we can do work if it's necessary. So we also have sanitary main relocation from stream banks to keep erosion from negatively impacting the sanitary sewer system. Neighborhood projects. This one's marked down, I think, as 19 to 20, but it's a rolling project that we're always doing. We just closed out 23 and 24. We got 24, 25 are out to design. Lagoon clean out is an ongoing maintenance project as we bring water through that thing. We have solids that settle out. We have to get that cleaned out every now and then to maintain the volume of the lagoon. Distribution system improvements. This one is when we have like a water main break or something like that. and we find that we need to put in a valve, or we have a leaking valve or something that doesn't close down, this allows us to go back and make those improvements when we find them. We have the filter valve house roof improvements. We have seven filter valve houses. We've got 4 of them completed. We got 3 more to go. So the basin drive improvements, that's ongoing. For when one of the basin drive motors fails, we can replace it, get it back up and in service. Main replacement program, that's our ongoing water main replacement program that we need to be on top of every year. Security upgrades, that's for water sites, for making improvements and replacing equipment as it fails to make sure we keep our sites secure. It's physical security. Treatment facility improvements, those are for upgrades to the sanitary sewer plant. And then we have pump station improvements and maintenance, which is for the lift stations and other stuff out in the collection system. All right, we got so our projects that are in design right now are the upper area interceptor, which is a sanitary sewer project that will help to alleviate some backwater effects down in the Dare area. It's a capacity improvement for them to keep from backing up into manholes and stuff. Cracker Neck Creek Slope Rehab. This is a slope failure that we had that we need to get back. That has impacted the sanitary sewer a little bit, and we need to rehabilitate that slope so we don't have continued erosion on it. Sludge thickening process improvements. This is equipment replacement for the sanitary sewer plant. We have some old DAFs that are dissolved air flotation, is what DAF stands for, but we got some old DAFs that have been in place for about 50 years, and they're starting to get a little bit on the rusty side, as you can imagine. So we need to take a look at those and get those replaced. So the future production wells, we're developing specs for 2 new production wells for the water plant to replace 2 existing wells that are seeing diminished capacity. Over time, the groundwater, over time, the well gets sediment and stuff in the intake. There you go. Thank you. That diminishes the water's ability to enter the well area, so that they can't pump as much capacity out of it, right? So we just need to replace them occasionally, and that's where we are on this one. The main replacement, Shealy Claremont to Norwood. There's 2 other Shealy main replacements there. These projects have all been put together into one project since, and that one's in design. Main replacement for 24 Highway Northern is going to be incorporated in the phase 3 of the 24 Highway project, but that one's still in design right now. Well-filled overhead electrical is going to go this year. We have a new engineer that we're planning on starting, I think, in about a week, and they're going to put that under that engineer to start working on it. We should get that finished up this year. And then horizontal collector wheel rehab project, scopes being developed for that one, and we should be able to get that one into design this year and hopefully finished up this year. We have a set of projects under construction. So we have our clarifier rehabilitation project. That's for the sanitary sewer plant to rehabilitate our 4 primary clarifiers. We're also going to be changing our blowers and putting in a new effluent flow meter structure during that project. So it's going to kind of touch on all parts of the plant. It'll be a pretty intense project, but we are right now in the submittal phase of that. So getting ready to start construction. The cost of service study for the sanitary is out and being conducted right now. We should be finishing that up early spring. Raymond Harkless to Mills sanitary improvement is under construction. This is sanitary sewer main upgrades for capacity concerns that we were having there. 23rd Street main replacement construction. That main construction is completed. It's under pressure testing right now. It's should be finished up in the next few days. We've just had some weather issues. We don't want to be dumping a bunch of water out on the ground in this kind of weather. So, the lime silo is substantially complete. So that is nearly finished. Sludge house piping improvements are in progress. So these are improvements for the piping in the water plant for their sludge house. Right over time, the pipes develop issues, and we just need to replace them. Chlorinator improvements should be completed this year, and then we got a set of projects on hold. So we've got Spring Branch Garage Complex. That one's on hold, basically waiting for funding to come through on that one. Arlington Improvements is on hold for further evaluation. That one is a very difficult sanitary sewer collection issue. There's a lot of pipes that are doing some odd stuff out there, and some of them that are not properly mapped. But it's working, so we're continuing to evaluate that system, try to figure out everything that's going on over there before we go into a project. So that one's kind of on hold, waiting until we get through all of the issues over there. The Rock Creek Treatment Plant septic pumper, this is a septic receiving station that is on hold. Unfortunately, the effluent flow meter project runs exactly through where this should go, so we're kind of holding off on this one until that project is out of the way. We don't need two construction groups working on top of each other. Borough East is ready to go to acquisition. We just need to get those started and start acquiring property for that one. Treatment plant discharge is waiting on DNR permit. So this is for the Courtney Bend water plant discharge. So that one's just waiting on DNR to give us permits to do it. So basically, any discharge that you're doing out of a plant, you have to have the DNR permit to do any work on it. So that's what we're on hold there for. Filter backwash outfall. This one's on hold until we get another maintenance project finished up. It's got to be completely dry to do it, and we have some valves that aren't closing. So we need, they're leaking a little bit past them. We can close them well enough, but not well enough to be completely dry. So we need to get those valves replaced. And once we do that, we'll be able to get on that project. Let's see, plant discharge outfall. That will be combined with the discharge project. That's on hold waiting for DNR. Maintenance building at Courtney Bend plant. We need that building. The old maintenance building is desperately needs to be replaced. We got a little bit of logistics problem because we want to put the new maintenance building where the old maintenance building is. So we're trying to kind of move them into one of the other sheds for the time being, and then we'll tear that one down and put this one back in. So
Just move it over where you're gonna drop the chimney at Blue Valley and take care of it.
yeah. Let's see, the 30-inch steel transmission main assessment project. We put some cathodic protection on that main a couple of years back, so we're kind of holding off on that project to see how that cathodic protection helps take care of the main. If it doesn't do the job, we'll have to come back and do this project, but for now, we're hoping that it'll take care of it. Basically, what it's doing is it's been in the ground for a while. It's developing some pinholes here and there where it starts to leak, but we're hoping that cathodic protection will take care of it and stop that from happening. let's see, main replacement at Third and Jennings is on hold. Not sure that that one's necessary. Facility improvements, construction and maintenance. That one was initially put out by distribution, for the distribution building with Spring Branch. We won't need that building, so we're gonna close that project and move it into Spring Branch to help do the Spring Branch garage. And then the M291 well-filled header that we're working with MoDOT. MoDOT is planning on redoing those bridges over 291, and we have the north well-filled pipe is hanging from one of those bridges. So when they take that bridge down, we're gonna have to move that pipe, and we're trying to work with MoDOT to get approval to rehang a new pipe on their new bridge. We'll see how that goes. So, yeah.
When is that supposed to happen? The bridges?
I'm not sure exactly what MoDOT's time schedule is on that. I can find out for you though.
It doesn't
Yeah,
seem
we're-
like it's been that long since they've done that. They put that new bridge over 291.
Yeah, well, what
I mean,
I believe what they're planning on doing is taking out the old bridge
taking the other side
and
out.
rebuilding it. But the old bridge is the one that has our pipe on it.
Yeah.
So when they do that, we want to move it to the new bridge if they'll allow it. And then also come back and put another one as a backup for our North Wellfield on the brand new bridge, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, we're at least a year out on that. But I don't have an exact time schedule on it yet. We're still arm wrestling over
Not
whether we
looking
can
forward
put a
to
header
that.
pipe on something or not.
Not looking forward to that
So-
traffic.
No, that'll be rough.
I
for a
remember
while.
when they redid the other one, and that was
So that gets us through all our projects. Anyone got any questions?
You got a lot on your plate,
Yeah.
both groups.
I have a wish. I wish citizens who complain, especially on social media, about how much everything costs, could hear what the two reports just were.
I was gonna tell him it wasn't a competition. He didn't have to go longer than me.
Well, yeah,
There's a
two
lot,
lists we were
there's a
going
lot
back
of
to.
projects. He has 2 lists, yeah.
Two utilities, like, you gotta go
Yeah.
run.
No,
We were
it's-
just trying to go shorter.
Impressive.
That was the
Remind me
goal.
never to
There's a
ask
lot
that.
going on.
Yeah.
Okay,
For those of you that don't know, and a refresher for our seasoned members and information for our newer members, just last year they created capital project funds separately from the operating budget. So when you see on here negative balances on any project, as we close the projects that aren't done, those funds are reallocated to cover the negative balances on other projects within this fund. Those will not go back to the operating budget that you see on the financial statement. They stay in the capital project fund.
any questions? Okay, well, thank you for that report, Rich and Joe and Lisa and Ricky, that side of the room. Okay, anything else from municipal services? Nothing? IPL, update on Amy? Maybe we should start saying that, because AMI really gets people like fingers on a chalkboard. It's called Amy.
I'll work on that. I'll work on that branding,
I
maybe.
heard somebody
through
Dave was
our-
talking about, they named their new pet, Doji. Doji, yeah, D-O-G.
huh?
Oh, Doji.
Nice. Stand-up comedian over
Yeah,
there.
exactly. So let's hear about Amy.
So AMI, yeah. We've had, our
Okay, fine.
Our project team is identified, and they have met. And so next steps for them is, I know we talked about refreshing the RFP. And the last time that RFP was sent out, I think we might have possibly missed some steps. So we're trying to take a step back. So I want people to understand, this group and even the public, that AMI is not simply just going to your house, replacing your meter, and then we start operating, right? There is a lot more to it. It is automated metering infrastructure. So there's meters, there's communications, there's networks, there's software and hardware. There's a lot. It's a whole program. It's not just a new meter on your house that does magical things and and all of a sudden your bills look different, okay? And so what we really want to do is when we go through this project, we want to do it the right way. So we're going to take a step back and we're going to actually write an RFP and hire probably a program manager to help us through it. Last time we hired West Monroe to kind of write the business case for it. And so, I mean, that's one part of it is the business case and make sure that the decisions and whatever you select is going to meet the needs, not only for the residents, but also for the business. It's the right financial decision. It's the right long-term decision. So I think we're going to go out, write an RFP and help us get some program management. And then also that program manager will help us with public relations and the outward communications of what this project is going to do, what it's going to look like, and make sure we really get through the project, right? Because that would be the next step is we get a program manager on board and then we go out for the actual project and the delivery of the hardware and some of the actual decisions of what does this project look like. Some of the things that some of the you guys on this board have asked me, are we going to allow for this? Are we going to allow for that? Well, I think that's 3 steps down in the decision-making process of what does the actual project look like. But we need to get a program manager on board to help us get to those decisions. I don't want to rush into this project. We want to make sure we do it and we do it right and it comes out a good product for the citizens and for the utility. And it's got to work for electric, it's got to work for water, and it's got to work for all of us. So right now, kind of the timeline goal is we've set a middle of February goal to maybe get an RFP out on the street for a program manager to come help us really grab the whole thing and then the small pieces of the RFP for the actual hardware and the actual installation and those types of things will come out of that. Any questions? Does that make sense what I said?
Yeah.
So I get a lot of detailed questions of are we going to allow this? Are we going to do that? I don't know. That's down the road and that's decisions for, I'm going to say us collectively as a city to make, right? But we need to get there before we just start piecemealing decisions. Let's understand a goal, let's understand a timeline, and let's understand what really it involves.
I can maybe add a couple things. I'd just say part of the strategy with the evaluation of the first part, which would be the program management part, is to help us. There's a lot of people nuances here, right? And there's a lot of different components to keep track of. And the performance management will help us set that strategy and manage the performance through the life cycle of the project implementation, And so I think of the program management side as more of a relationship, an ongoing relationship to help us through the evolution that comes, because this really is an evolution of the utility. When you think of a new infrastructure, people interacting with technologies much differently than they have in the past, there's a lot of change to manage through. And so over the life cycle of the project, this first part is super important for us to lay a strong foundation for us to be able to execute the technology components that come right after it. So.
I guess my big question would be, and I understand all that. I understand about the little pieces. I think the big 30,000-foot view question would be, what's the city going to do to bring the ratepayers into it? Because if you remember about 5 years ago, there were more than 6,000-7,000 people that signed petitions to not have it. And that was, among lots of things, it was health, security, a lot of that. And so that would be my big 30,000 foot question. How's the city gonna plan to bring the citizens to get there to buy in on?
So that's part of the program management,
Okay.
right, is to hire a PR firm to help us with the communications and outward reach and hold the sessions out in the public to talk about this and and talk about the integration and how it's going to occur. What does it look like? What are the facts and what are some misinformations out there about it? Because there's just as much, I'm not trying to use buzzwords, but there's as much disinformation as there is information out there. And what are the true facts? What does it do? What doesn't it do, right? Because I don't know that everybody's even clear on what AMI does or doesn't do. So the education part on the public is part of this program manager, and part of that would be public communications and the PR side.
Because, and also, when you gave your presentation Monday night, you mentioned time of use with the AMI, being able to do time of use.
And that,
which is peak pricing. And I know that back when Evergy, when the state told them you need to do your time of use rates. And I remember hearing a lot of people around Independence in person and on social media, man, I'm sure glad we don't have that, because what you got is you've got single mothers with kids that go to work during the day, and then between 4 and 8, it's like they're expected, if they want to save, this is where they get their savings, is you don't turn on your TV, you don't turn on your computer, you don't cook, you don't wash, you wait until after 8 o'clock to do that. That's what I think a lot of people are against. And so when it's said that, well, this gives them the ability to control their rates and so on, well, it by the time you add the app and but by the time you do all the stuff that you have to do, then studies are showing too that a lot of people aren't saving as much. So I'm not trying to be negative Nancy, but at the same time, I'm trying to ask, how are we gonna?
So you're on step 10 and I'm on step 1.
Okay.
Time of use rates is so far down the road. It's just something I brought up as a strategic plan of a discussion point once we have AMI.
But it's still
But we're 3 to 5 years from having AMI. So let's be honest, okay?
okay.
And then on top of that, then we start having discussions. Is that something the city wants to go towards and have? This strategic plan isn't the set in stone that the day I put an AMI meter on your house, you now have time of use rates. That I don't want anybody to think that. And that discussion point was purely it gives us the availability to explore that if that's something that the city wants, and we think as a board that that's a good strategic option for the residents and the utility.
So realistically, what are we looking at? Ballpark, I know you're talking about the program manager, mid-February, putting the RFPs out. So how far down from him are we talking about putting out RFPs for actual?
I don't know.
Okay.
And I don't want to say, because part of that program manager is then setting forth the schedule forward for, okay, when do we put out the RFP for the actual contract, or what does the communication strategy and time frame look like? So I don't want to give a bunch of, here's what I think. So let's wait and get the program manager hired and on board, and then we'll have actual facts in front of us to be able to lay out an actual timeline.
Will he be integrated?
Absolutely.
With us?
Absolutely.
I just want to mention one thing. You were speaking of the previous time they tried to implement AMI. And I want us to be very careful with how we do this, because when they tried to do this before, the people that I spoke to that were signing the petition to prevent this from happening, the one thing that they nearly all had in common was they felt the way that the city or the city council was going about this was very shady. They felt like this got put on an agenda at the last minute, that nobody knew that it was on the agenda till about the couple days before. It wasn't really published. people just really were upset with how that was handled. I would like for us to be very careful about how we do this time, so that people don't have that feeling again.
So can I replace the word careful with transparent? I mean,
Transparent would
that's
be
what I want to be, is
fantastic.
transparent through the process
I
and,
think
and not any gotcha moments, no.
a lot of people felt the last way it was handled was very non-transparent.
We absolutely want to be transparent, but having been on that project team back then, that was a 2-year process with multiple presentations to the PUAB and study sessions to council, and a few iterations in taking the actual, there was the business case that went to council, there was the implementation that went to council. These are all 2 reading issues. So, I mean, there were multiple presentations, and again, multiple, not only to council, but to PUAB over a couple of years. So,
Right, but a lot of people weren't aware of that, and they got this little thing that said, hey, this is happening tonight, and people went, wait, what? And that, I remember, because I went to that council meeting that night, and it was packed.
oh, there were.
People going, what's going on?
There were lots of people that came to
Yeah.
several meetings. It was definitely not just the night they voted on it. We
Yeah.
probably a solid 2 months. We had a packed house
Yeah.
with people, public speaking,
I-
public comment before every meeting.
This is just what I observed.
Sure.
And I just want us to be very careful and not go through that again.
I think we all want that. Being in different capacities with the city, and I've seen that happen when I was on planning commission, you know, you get 300 people show up because they're upset about something that they just found out about. That's what we don't want to do. And this thing has been out there with the DMKT stuff. It's been mentioned, and it's been mentioned, your president, so it's been mentioned several times. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that we're looking at this. And we just got to make sure we stay transparent as we move forward on dates and when things are going to be presented or discussed. And Christina and I were talking before the meeting that as this progresses, we may have a few more people besides one show up here to listen and observe too. So
And that's why I know that you mentioned things come up, and I know I'm one of those that I bring up the opt-out. And the reason I bring that up, and I understand what you're saying, that that's a couple of steps down the road. However, the reason I bring that up is because partially what Anthony's bringing up, that I think if you nip it in the bud and you just go ahead and offer an analog opt-out right up from the bat, and that's why I keep saying, if you include that in the RFPs when they do go out, not that you're not, you want to be able to just have that option. And so to take away the anger, mistrust, or whatever with the citizens, if you just offer that up front, there's not going to be half the city that's going to do it. It's going to be a few people that are going to want to do that for health reasons or whatever. But if you do it up front, that shows you're being transparent and you don't end up in a fight with the citizens. That's the reason I keep bringing that up.
Okay. So to be transparent, that won't be in the RFP. That is not something, if you opt out, so let's go down the path that we offer an opt-out program. That's not part of the RFP. That's just your house doesn't get the new meter on it, and whatever requirements or anything we place around that has nothing to do with the installation of the remainder of the system.
Okay, well, if that's what it is.
So I don't have to ask a person if I can only do half of my city in AMI. It's literally your meter would not get replaced, or it would get replaced with a different analog meter or whatever the decisions are. But that's a separate discussion from the rest of the AMI infrastructure.
Well, I asked that because the one company they picked to do that said they couldn't do their program and offer an analog opt-out. So that's why I figured you need to include that when you ask to make sure the company can offer that. Now, I know that the opt-out is.
But I'm the
down.
company.
No, the vendor, the vendor.
I
The one
understand,
that-
but they're not installing anything on your house at that point in time.
Okay.
So I wasn't around for that, so I don't wanna,
Okay.
I don't wanna debate what happened last time. I'm telling you that today, if I went and installed AMI,
That's fine.
that I would just, if we provide an opt-out program, that the houses that opt out just aren't gonna be part of the new AMI program.
Okay.
Is that,
That-
I don't need a vendor
That,
to say.
well, that's what happened. That's what I'm going by, is
Okay.
what happened last time, because they picked the vendor, and the vendor said, no, we can't do the program and have an analog too.
So it's more of an operational issue about who
It's
you.
an
And that's
operational-
fine. And
It's
that's
an
fine,
operational
yeah.
decision, not a.
Yeah.
not a
Okay, and that's
vendor
fine.
specific.
That's fine.
Right, I know. Okay.
Yeah, and that doesn't create a technical difficulty or a requirement that prohibits us from moving forward with AMI. There's no technical capability that says if you're gonna require an opt-out, you're only gonna be limited to certain meters. That's not the case. That's more of a
And I
policy
think people just
decision.
need to be reassured of that, that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what
Yeah,
I'm
so it's a
saying.
policy
Right.
decision, right?
I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm
No,
just
I
trying to
just-
make sure that we all are on the same page.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, anything else on the AMI?
Amy,
Amy, he told me not to say that.
I said I wasn't gonna say it.
On the AMI project, any other questions, comments? Okay, and now we got IPL strategic plan implementation present thing that's on there. You know, for those of us that went to the council meeting the other night, Joe did a nice job of going through the IPL strategic plan, and that's something that we'll take off of in another meeting or two when we kind of put together our strategic plan or what we kind of want to do to dovetail into what the city's doing. But one of the things that he brought up was the governance structure for the PUB moving forward, which they're looking at possibly an August vote, because it's gotta go to the people because it's a charter change, based on the way the charter is written about the PUAB right now. One of the things that I've talked to Joe about is, you know, he made a presentation here, and there's things in this document, if you haven't looked at them, about utility board, how it would be structured, how it would be set up. I'd like us as a group to take a look at that and see if we agree with those comments, if we have any additions, changes, so that by the next meeting, we can say we support what Joe's put in there. We'd like to talk about making some tweaks to it, because as this thing moves forward, if they're gonna really take it to a vote of the people for the charter change in August, it's gotta be approved by council in end of May, I believe. I don't know the exact date, but it's usually end of May. So we've got really February, March, April, and May to get that part done. So we've got a little legwork to do before that.
Truly, that's if the stars align. That's just
If
the
the stars
earliest opportunity to take it to a vote.
So rather than.
And this was an initial recommendation, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, this
Yeah.
was the first stab at, here's an idea to, I think, in my mind, start the conversation of here.
We
here's a thought.
talked to Springfield Utilities last year, and they use a PUB model, team taking it away from, as they say, take the political influence of the council out of it, out of running the utilities, and putting it in the hand of a board. And so, what Joe presented was a modified version of that, because in the Springfield model, and there's other models out there, but that's the one we're the most familiar with, the executive director of utilities actually reports to the board. In this case, they would still report the way they report in the city structure. But certain things like the budget, the CIP program, that kind of thing would be the board's responsibility to define and lay out and be in charge of. So what I'd like to do between now and that next meeting is look at what was presented in the presentation. And let's see if we've got anything we want to add to that, want to change, tweak, so we can come back to that next meeting and have a good discussion on it. Because the ultimate goal to me would be, once we agree on it, the PUAB would then send a letter to the council. We're so good at that. We send a letter to the council and, you know, lend our support or whatever it is on that issue as they move forward, because they've got some decisions they've gotta make on how they'd like to see it. Joe, anything, I don't know what kind of feedback you got after that meeting the other day, if you got any feedback or.
I don't know, there was very few questions, I think. I think it's kind of one of those, I presented it, now everybody's just kind of digesting, okay, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? So really it's kind of, I guess I'm in a holding pattern until I get some further direction, or, hey, I liked this, but if you changed this, what would it look like? So really, like I said, it was a first stab at the beginning of the conversation of what would a board look like, how would it function, how would it be selected, how would it operate, what would terms be, and so literally it was just kind of a first go at, let's start the conversation. We were told, we've heard from DKMT and others that it's a good model to go towards, and I think council, not trying to speak for them, but they have interest in hearing about some options and have been asking for some recommendations, so.
Yeah, and I think about 70% of the municipals have a board like this.
70% are our size
Yes,
or
our size.
larger.
Have a board that
Have a utility.
runs the utilities. And this would be all utilities, not just IPL.
Yeah,
And that's another option, and we talked about that in-house, if it should just be an IPL board. It didn't make a lot of sense to us as staff to have two separate boards. But again, I would think, like Joe said, he threw out something to react to for both council and the PUAB. So I would say we take that into, like you mentioned, into our next meeting here and tweak it to what your preferences are, and that gives the council maybe another model to react to. I see this obviously going to a study session where there can be just some good debate on all the options to finally get to the model that we end up executing. But
And I would encourage you, as this moves forward, and they do have study sessions or presentations at council, if you can make it, if you can watch it on the streaming service or catch it later, it's well worth doing. At one time, I wanted Joe to do this presentation here, but then after talking to Christine and Joe, it was like, we'll just invite everybody to the city council meeting to hear it, or they can see it online versus doing it twice, with the intent of us discussing this one piece that really pertains to us.
well, and any questions you guys have, not only
Yeah.
for the governance, but that whole study session, I'm more than happy to talk to those points.
And I would say too, for just as a point of just, order for us, anytime we have anything related to the DKMT study, so we don't have to duplicate, at least maybe we send an email out to this board so you guys know it's coming, have time to adjust your schedules if you want to attend that meeting, or call for a separate discussion on your own, but just to give you a heads up. So you don't have to listen to it twice, unless you really, really want to, but it gives you a chance to have discussion and prepare.
Well, Joe really wanted
It was
to
pretty
do
good.
it twice.
It was pretty good.
He does love to present, so.
Okay, so Sabine and
I want to encourage the members who haven't watched it, and the new members, I assume, who haven't. Indie Energy had Springfield Utilities do a presentation on their governance system. It's great. It's like a half an hour. It's easy. If it'd be helpful, I could send Christina the link.
Why don't you?
Send
we
it out
should
to
get
everybody.
that.
Yeah, that would be good.
So what does that look like with us? Are we gonna try, because if we're gonna try and get this together before the next meeting, what's that look like? I mean, how are we gonna do that? Are we gonna do it by email?
Yeah, I would say by email, and I would funnel it all through Christina, just so
Okay.
she can get it out to everybody.
Okay.
Because if I mean, I have somebody's email address and I don't wanna miss them.
Like any changes, what we.
Yeah, take a look at what he presented, that he kind of threw up the stick on the wall, and see if there's something else, a different version, because I think the way Springfield operates, they have their PUB for the electric company, but then their other utilities are still with like a PUAB type structure.
No,
They're not?
they have one utility board
Okay,
for all
I've heard other
utilities, but they,
others
Sanitary
do
is
that.
different. Sanitary is different.
well, sanitary.
So water is included with electric, but sanitary is a standalone. It's a very unique
Well,
thing.
water and electricity go together so well.
But
Right? They really do. Just nobody wants to mess with poo,
But they
so
do.
they just make us standalone all in general. It's fine. We're
Is
used
that
to
a
it.
technical term we could use?
The other interesting.
Lots of them.
The other interesting district that they talk about is they run the bus system.
They run transit, yeah.
Utility runs transit, and I know Joe would love to run transit in town,
I just took on customer service, one thing at a time.
So what I'll probably do, start looking at that, watch the Springfield presentation, watch the council meeting that's online. If you didn't see the presentation to kind of get the gist of it, it was a recommendation of the DMKT studies that were done. If you want some one-on-one time on those, I'll be happy to sit down with anybody to talk about those studies, or we can kind of go through it. There's a lot of good, useful information there, but I'd really like to kind of get this thing nailed down. Yeah, Joe?
I've got a question. So you're talking about sending a bunch of things, and I'm always mindful of Christina's time.
Yeah, I don't want to overload
So
her.
what is it you're sending her? I thought you said you guys go back, review, and then next meeting, you guys have a discussion on what recommendations you want to send forward as a group.
It's a quorum issue. When we do, because we
Can
can't.
we
No,
email it amongst?
I think we just bring back our thoughts to the next meeting and discuss here.
That'll work.
The
That'll
whole
work.
email is.
And then make recommendations forward for changes you guys.
If
as a
somebody's
group.
not gonna be here, maybe get them to Christina so we have them, or send them to somebody.
Or do we wanna send them to you, Russ?
And you can send them to me too.
And then,
and I
then
can
you can
compile
compile them and send one email to Christina
Okay.
to have to include on the.
What I was gonna say was about 3 weeks into this, maybe a week or so before the next meeting, I'll reach out to everybody, just to kind of see if you've got any thoughts, concerns, questions, that we can have a good discussion at the next meeting on this governance piece, if there's anything we see that really needs to change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, how about the Indy Energy
Oh, yeah,
presentation?
that too. You can send that link to all of us if you want, or Christina, if she wants to send that piece out
Whatever's
to everybody.
best.
That way she has everybody's email address.
Just have to be careful with the sunshine law.
That's what I wanna make sure that we don't do.
Even in email, you can't communicate with each other if there's more than just a couple of you on an email. So
what I
that's
was
kind of
gonna
why it usually funnels through here, and it doesn't have to, but you just need to be careful of not having any communication during that time that you're emailing back and forth.
Yeah, that's why my suggestion was individually, we can email
Yeah, just-
Les, and then Les can do it all
Yeah,
in
if you
one.
wanna just send them to me, that's great. If you wanna just bring them to that meeting, either way. If I get them from some people, I'll kind of compile them. I know this all is clear as mud, what we just discussed.
Well, do you want, so if they send you stuff and you send her one list, do you really want that on the agenda, or do you just want to bring the item
I'll
and
just
discuss it
bring
here?
We'll just bring it. so
And
we can
then
discuss
you
it
come,
here.
and then you say, here's,
But we'll see how many people we have the same thoughts or whatever, so.
okay.
However people are comfortable with doing. If you just wanna bring your comments to the meeting, do that. If you wanna send them to me, great, we can do it. Okay, anything else, Joe, from IPL?
Oh, I think I've said enough.
I think you've done enough. Okay, we're down to board member comments. Any comments? Carrie, really glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
One of the things on my list of here of things to mention was take advantage of, when it gets warmer outside. Get with these folks and actually tour IPL, tour water treatment and all that. You'll be really amazed at what the city has that a lot of people don't know about.
Will do.
It's a good educational piece that will kind of help get you
I
up
will
to
wait
speed.
till it warms up.
Yeah.
Please.
Don't wait till it's too
Today
hot.
would have been perfect, but
Don't wait till it's too hot. Sewer plant might be
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
sketchy.
no,
Just
no,
saying. It's everybody's favorite.
I'm
So
sure.
just make sure you get with them though when the
Okay.
timing's right. We could probably do 3 people if there's anybody else that wants to go on those tours. Brad, I don't know, have you been on the tours?
Energy one.
Energy one, okay. And, we can do the other pieces too, so it's well worth taking the time for those tours and talk to them about what the city has to offer. So it's a good deal. We've already had the PUAB death discussion, and we beat that to death. Joe, I had asked you before the meeting about, I've seen it online, people are really upset, their bill got estimated, their bill's so much higher now, the city's just ripping them off. What's the process to go through when a bill gets estimated?
So I can address estimation. So, we tried to be transparent with that communication when we went out. I don't know if anybody saw it on social media. And yeah, there's a lot of positive and negative reactions to it. It's not something that we want to do. It's when we're forced and weather has limited, our capability to get to the meters. And I'm gonna use meters plural because it's not just electric, it's a water, right? We're under, several feet of snow in some yards. So our meter readers read both. We got to think about their safety and getting around. And then if we start getting behind too many days, we have contractual obligations to keep up on reads. So we estimate reads. I know I saw comments online. We don't just pick a number. We don't have a dartboard that we actually go through historical averages. If you're a customer that's been around for years, we will look back at the time frame that you had the year before and kind of calculate a daily average and then how many days were in that read and estimate it. So it should be relatively close. And then at the next read, there's a true up. So if you were, if let's just use 1,000 kilowatt hours. If you used 1,000 kilowatt hours last year and we estimated you at 1,000 kilowatt hours for this month, and then next month you have 1,500 kilowatt hours, which means you really only use probably 750. Well, you're only going to pay the difference between the two, right? Because you paid the bill for 1,000 kilowatt hours. We try to get as close as we can, and it trues up. I want to say it's not uncommon. It's not like everyone's, we have bad weather, we have storms, we have times where there's flooding and rain. It's not something we do all the time, so I don't want to act like we do it every month. But it's common enough that we have a procedure and a practice, and it's a calculated, formula that's used on how to calculate that average, and then it's trued up the very next month. So, yeah, your bill should not have gone up unless last year your daily average, due to the fact that you're now running a furnace, which is an electrical device,
I see
Who would've
people's
thought it?
comments, oh, my bill went up $700.
space heaters and.
Well, it's been cold. What else have you been running? Space heaters, things like that they don't calculate into that, so.
Well, and another thing on that too, if more people realized that we've had to do it twice at our house, like this last time they couldn't get in the gate because it was frozen shut. So they leave a card on the front door, and I've done it twice. I snap a picture that morning, I send it to the meter reader, the IPL meter, whatever, that I send a picture and I send the card that I've marked, and I got back a thank you, and it says customer read on the bill. So that's one way to avoid
It is.
that.
It is. You can take a picture.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And send it in. There's an email address on the website. I
Right.
unfortunately don't
On the
have it.
card that they leave too.
On the card, yeah.
No, then people will be complaining about, I had to read my own meter,
Sure.
Understand.
I get an employee discount.
I understand.
now.
You got it right.
It's the Walmart.
Hey, turn it into an advertisement for AMI.
I was gonna say something like that, but I thought I better just keep my mouth
I can
shut.
get away with it because I'm just a guy. who never
Exactly. Storm recap and update. I didn't hear really too many issues other than some people used our power poles to slide into to stop.
Yeah, we had one accident there at Jackson and Little Blue. Person slid through the intersection and ran into kind of a switchgear / transformer.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, from the ice we had, that heavy snow, I didn't really hear
we did
many,
we fared pretty well.
and I know everybody wants to complain about their streets not getting snow plowed, or there's a lot of snow to move. And the crews did a yeoman's amount of work to get that done round the clock. My hats are off to them. Some of the aftermath now you can see kind of where, in some areas I looked and I go, did they even put their plow down? Because I mean, the snow was still, quite deep.
Yeah, they struggled, and there were a lot of cars on the street
Yes.
that kept us from plowing full lanes. Even now,
Yeah.
we struggle with seeing still cars parked on streets that prohibit our plows from getting in. But yes, I appreciate it, and I'll relay that back to the crews because they
Yeah.
are still actively out
Oh,
clearing
yeah.
curb to curb.
Yeah.
Need more days like today.
Yeah, and it will help it melt, but then we're gonna get in the icebox or the freezer next week, so we'll be back into it. But no, hats off to them. The folks did an awesome job. Appreciate their efforts. Last thing I have on my list is annual report to take to council, because we're required to do that. As I was pulling up the last year's meeting minutes in the online system, it was giving me some bizarre stuff. So Christina was gonna look at a couple of things and see if I can finish pulling the rest of those up so I can pull that stuff together off of approved meeting minutes. I want to make sure they've all been approved by us before we use that. So hopefully we'll have that at the next meeting. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I address the group?
Well, it's 5 to 4. You've got 5 minutes.
All right, I don't need that long, I don't think. I just want to, for some of our newer members, just to say that my role is that I'm, the council went through a process of identifying the different committees and identifying people on the council to be liaison to the committee. So I'm the liaison to the PUAB. That's why I'm here regularly, as often as I can be. And so, you know, feel free to use me if you have questions or anything that I can do from my perspective. And just, I think, to echo a couple of comments today that I would, you know, this council is certainly about being transparent. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And, you know, that's, it's not always perceived that way, but that's our goal. And so, you know, if you have that as a goal to start out with, at least, you know, maybe you can make some good strides that direction. And that's certainly our goal. And so I just wanted to, because there were some comments in that regard, you know, public, I mean, there's an open finance spot on the website that really is helpful if you want to dig into the financials of the city. And so that's good information as well. The last thing I would have is regarding the governance board. You know, Joe did he just threw that out, a lot of that out on Monday night. That was really his goal, and that's what we asked him to do, to give some comments and some ideas and things to start with. You know, I have questions about a number of those. I'm sure you do as well. And so I think the council will be interested in hearing your feedback regarding that. So that's really all I have. I just wanted to make that mention.
Jaron, I appreciate your comments. I'm glad you're here as our liaison. You know, it's not a glamorous committee, but we do cover a lot of things. You never know what we're going to talk about, from poo to whatever. So really glad to have you here and appreciate your comments. Okay, anything else? Next meeting is February 20th at 2:30 in the same room until we're told differently. So looking for a motion to adjourn? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.